You did everything right. Or at least you thought you did. You worked hard. You followed the rules. You sacrificed. You provided. You played the part of the responsible man, the backbone, the provider, the one who didn't complain. And now, somewhere around 50, you're left wondering, why doesn't this feel like enough? What you're about to hear might challenge everything you've been taught, but it might also be the most important conversation you've had in years. These aren't tips or tricks. These are lies. 7 of them. Lie number 1. If you work hard and follow the rules, life will work out. This is the first lie most men are handed, and the last one they're willing to question. From an early age, you were taught that discipline, hard work, and staying on track would eventually lead to a life of peace, purpose, and perhaps even happiness. So you did it. You showed up. You carried the load. You suppressed complaints. You made yourself dependable, reliable, predictable. You earned your reputation as the man who could be counted on no matter what. And yet, something feels off. You hit the milestones, but they didn't deliver what they promised. Instead of deep satisfaction, there's this quiet, persistent emptiness. You did everything they said would make life meaningful, yet meaning still feels just out of reach. Here's the truth that no one likes to say out loud. The rules weren't made for your happiness. They were made for your obedience. Society needs you to be productive, not fulfilled. It values your output, not your inner peace. And the system? It runs best when you don't ask questions. But now, you're finally asking. This isn't rebellion. It's awakening. You're not too late. You're right on time. The path you've been walking wasn't wrong, it just wasn't yours. It's time to stop following someone else's map and start creating your own. Lie number 2. You are your job. For most of your adult life, you answered the question, who are you, with what you did. You didn't think twice. You were the manager, the engineer, the business owner, the breadwinner. Your identity was wrapped tightly around your career, your output, and your ability to provide. And for a while, that made sense. You were needed. You were respected. You had a clear purpose. But then life shifted. Maybe you retired. Maybe you got laid off. Perhaps your kids have grown up and no longer need you the way they once did. Maybe your partner's income started to exceed yours. And suddenly, you were left facing a question that hadn't crossed your mind in decades. If I'm not my job, then who am I? This isn't a personal crisis. It's a cultural one. Men have been conditioned to link their value to their utility. When you're producing, you matter. When you're not, you vanish. But that's the lie. You are not your paycheck. You are not your business card. You are not the title you put on your tax return. Your value doesn't disappear the moment your productivity slows down. It was never about that. The deeper truth is this. Who you are has nothing to do with what you do. Beneath the roles, beneath the responsibilities, there is still a man who thinks, feels, dreams, and wonders. That man has always existed. He just got buried under decades of expectations. Now's your chance to reconnect with him. Strip away the job title. Drop the provider mask. Ask the real question. Who was I before I believed I had to earn my worth? The answer to that question, that's where your freedom begins. Lie number 3. Marriage is about sacrifice and compromise. You were taught that being a good partner meant giving things up. Your time, your hobbies, your desires. Be the provider. Keep the peace. Don't complain. Put her needs first. Make sacrifices even if they cost you pieces of yourself. You believed that compromise was the foundation of love. And at first, it may have worked. Maybe it felt noble. But over time, something shifted. The compromises stopped feeling mutual. The sacrifices started piling up. And what you called love started looking more like quiet resignation. You told yourself you were doing the right thing by avoiding conflict, by staying agreeable, by being accommodating. But deep down, part of you began to disappear. You started silencing your voice to maintain harmony. You hid your needs to avoid confrontation. You became smaller, softer, quieter, not out of strength, but out of fear. Fear of rocking the boat. Fear of being rejected. Fear of being seen as selfish. But here's the reality. Disappearing doesn't make a relationship stronger. It makes it hollow. When you stop showing up as your whole self, the connection weakens, even if the surface stays calm. True intimacy doesn't come from silence. It comes from the truth. It comes from showing up with your whole self, even the messy parts, especially the messy parts. You weren't made to be a yes man. You weren't made to live in emotional exile. You were made to engage, to feel, to matter. And a real relationship, one built on depth, not duty, requires you to be fully present. You don't have to choose between love and truth. You have to stop believing that love only survives in silence. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is speak. Lie number 4. If you keep the peace, everything will be fine. You learned early on that being a man meant being steady, calm, collected. The one who absorbs the chaos so no one else has to feel it. You became the emotional buffer between your partner and stress, your kids and reality, your friends and discomfort. You didn't speak up unless you had to. You avoided conflict. You called it maturity. You called it strength. But what you really did was trade honesty for harmony. Keeping the peace may feel noble, but it's often just a more socially acceptable way to hide. When you stay quiet to avoid tension, when you swallow your needs to prevent disruption, when you pretend everything's fine to keep things calm, what you're really doing is abandoning yourself. And over time, that quiet builds into resentment. Not rage, not outbursts, just a low, constant sense of disconnection from others, from yourself, from the truth. Because peacekeeping isn't peace, it's performance. And no matter how well you play the part, people eventually feel the gap. They sense the emotional distance. They stop coming to you with real things, and you start feeling like a ghost in your own life. Real peace isn't the absence of conflict, it's the presence of truth. The uncomfortable conversation you've been avoiding, it's the doorway to real connection. The truth you've been holding back, it's the key to being fully seen. It's not about being aggressive, it's about being honest. If you want relationships that are deep, not just pleasant, if you want a connection that lasts beyond the surface, you have to be willing to break the illusion of peace. Because the truth might shake things up, yes, but it also might set you free. Lie number 5. Success means status and stuff. You spent most of your life chasing a version of success that wasn't yours. A bigger house, a better title, a newer car, a retirement plan that proved you were winning. And maybe you got there. Maybe you checked all the boxes. From the outside, it looked like you made it. But here's the part nobody talks about. Arriving doesn't always feel like arriving. You reached the goals. You hit the targets. But something inside still feels unfinished. It's not because you're ungrateful. It's not because you're broken. It's because you were chasing validation, not alignment. Success, as it's defined by culture, is about accumulation. But real fulfillment isn't about what you collect. It's about what you connect with. It's about how aligned your life is with what truly matters to you, not how impressed other people are by your resume. You've been measuring yourself with someone else's ruler. And no matter how high you score, it never quite feels like enough. The truth is, external success can only take you so far. Eventually, the applause fades. The novelty wears off. And what's left is the question no one wants to ask. Do I even like the man I became to get here? Real success is waking up without dread. It's going to sleep without regret. It's spending your time on things that feel meaningful, not just marketable. It's having conversations that feed your soul, not just your ego. You don't need to downgrade your ambition. You just need to upgrade your definition of success. Because you weren't meant to live a life that only looks good. You were meant to live a life that actually feels good. And that starts with letting go of the scorecard. Lie number 6, it's too late to change. This is the lie that keeps most men stuck. Not because it's true, but because it feels so convincing. You tell yourself you've gone too far down one path, that you've made your choices, and now you have to live with them. You call it acceptance. You call it being realistic. But deep down, you know what it really is. It's resignation. And the tragedy of resignation is that it looks like peace, but feels like defeat. The truth is, by the time you hit 50, you don't have less clarity, you have more. You've lived enough, failed enough, achieved enough, lost enough. You finally understand what matters and what doesn't. You've outgrown the pressure to impress everyone. You've seen what burnout looks like. You've tasted what regret feels like. And now you get to choose differently, not because you're desperate, but because you're ready. Change at this stage of life isn't reckless. It's informed. It's not about starting from scratch. It's about applying everything you've learned to the part of your life that still matters most, the part you haven't lived yet. You're not too old to start over. You're finally old enough to do it right. There's still time to pivot, still time to let go of what's not working, still time to write a chapter that actually reflects who you've become. Don't confuse comfort with purpose. Don't confuse routine with fulfillment. And don't let the fear of being behind stop you from showing up. Because you're not behind. You're on time for a life that's actually yours. And it's not too late. It's just finally real. Lie number 7. Masculinity is a liability. At some point over the last few decades, masculinity went from being seen as strength to being seen as a problem. Not everywhere, not by everyone, but enough that the message landed. Tone it down. Don't be too direct. Don't take up too much space. Don't speak with too much conviction. And slowly, many good men started pulling back. Not because they were weak, but because they were confused. You didn't want to be the bad guy, so you softened your presence, second-guessed your instincts, filtered your words. You tried to be safe, polite, and careful. And what was lost in that process wasn't just your confidence, it was your identity. But masculinity was never the problem. Distorted masculinity is the problem, the kind that dominates, postures, and performs. The kind built on insecurity, not strength. That's not masculinity. That's fear in disguise. Real masculinity is grounded. It's present. It's still. It doesn't need to be loud, and it doesn't need to apologize. It leads with both strength and compassion. It protects without controlling. It stands its ground without needing to overpower. And most importantly, it knows who it is. You don't have to choose between being kind and being strong. You can be both. You don't have to shrink to be accepted. You don't have to overcompensate to be respected. You have to show up as a man who has done the work, both internally and externally. Masculinity, when it's healthy, is not something to be feared. It's something to be trusted. And when you trust yourself, others will too. This isn't about going backward. It's about reclaiming something you were never meant to lose. Not dominance, not ego, but the calm, steady presence of a man who knows exactly who he is. If any part of this hit home, good. That means you're still awake, still alive, still capable of choosing something better. Because the truth is, it's not too late. Not to question the old rules, not to rewrite the script, and not to finally start living in alignment with who you really are. The lies we covered today, they've shaped generations of men. But you don't have to carry them anymore. You've earned the right to live free. And that doesn't come from breaking down, it comes from breaking through. You don't need to become someone new. You just need to return to the man you were before the world told you who to be. And if this video helped you take even one step in that direction, do yourself a favor, don't stop here. Subscribe. Stick around. Join a growing group of men who are choosing truth over tradition, purpose over pressure, and presence over performance. And if this resonated with you, hit that like button so it reaches the men who need to hear it. You've spent decades playing the part. Now it's time to live the life. Welcome back to yourself. We're just getting started.